I always felt like a shadow in my own family, blending into the walls like a faded photograph, my presence barely registering amidst all the vibrant colors of my siblings' life. Growing up in Cedar Grove, where the sun seemed to shine a little brighter on the golden child, I often stood on the sidelines, a spectator in my own story. I remember sitting at the kitchen table, the sound of my parents' voices ringing with pride as they spoke of my siblings' accomplishments. Did you hear about the scholarship? My mother would exclaim, her voice filled with excitement. They really deserve it. And while I would smile, the kind of smile that barely reached my eyes, the kind that felt rehearsed, I could not help but wonder if my achievements had ever even made it into discussions. The weight of unfulfilled expectations pressed heavy upon my shoulders. My sibling charmed everyone effortlessly, their laughter ringing like a bell as it captivated our parents and friends alike. They walked through life like they were dancing in a spotlight while I lingered in the corners, focusing on my books, my notes, my future. Why can't you be more like your sibling? I had heard that question echo in my head far too many times to count. Despite every hour I spent studying, trying to elevate myself, I could not escape the conclusion that no matter what I did, I would always be second best. Those thoughts chased me like pesky shadows, always ready to swirl around me, reminding me of my place in the universe of my family. Then everything changed the day we received the news. Our grandfather had passed away. He was the one person who saw me for who I was and not who I was not. His tall frame hunched slightly, his voice low and reassuring as he sat me down whenever I felt overwhelmed. He often whispered his encouragement, his words landing softly but firmly on my heart, planting seeds of confidence that slowly grew to overshadow the harsh voices around me. I had spent countless afternoons at his house, learning the nuances of his favorite card games, indulging in lighthearted banter over bowls of popcorn while listening to stories of his youth. He had a way of making me feel special, like I was the only one that mattered at that moment, a feeling I cherished more than I could express. After the funeral, standing beneath a sky draped in gray clouds, I felt the chill of loss seep into my very bones. The scent of damp earth mixed with the unmistakable aroma of pine and the fresh-cut grass as I shuffled through a heavy crowd of mourners. Conversations floated around me like leaves in the wind, whispers of loss and love intertwining. Yet as the day wore on, I found myself anchored to the idea of the will reading, my heart racing at the thought of what might be left behind. My thoughts swirled around how our grandfather had spoken with such pride about the future he envisioned for us, how he saw us growing, flourishing, and becoming something more than just shadows. On the day of the reading, I arrived at my grandfather's worn, familiar home, where the living room still held the smell of his brand of tobacco and hints of fresh coffee brewing in his old percolator. The mahogany furniture gleamed under the dim light, casting soft shadows. It felt wrong that this space, so filled with the essence of my grandfather, would soon hold only memories. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the flutter of anxiety that danced in my stomach. I was here for something important, for something I hoped would finally give me a voice. As everyone gathered around the long wooden table, the air crackled with a mixture of anticipation and grief. My siblings sat across from me, their confident demeanor contrasting sharply with my simmering unease. The lawyer, a man I hardly recognized, stood at the head of the table, a stack of papers clutched in his hands. He cleared his throat, the sound echoing through the tense silence, and began reading the will. To my dear grandchildren, he started, and I held my breath, feeling a surge of hope rush through me. I leave you each a trust fund of $50,000. I glanced at my sibling, who was already smirking slightly, an expression I would come to despise. The lawyer continued, but my focus blurred, the words swirling around me like a bushel of leaves tossed by a tempest. I had money coming to me, a chance to step out of the shadows, but the reality of the moment felt distant, abstract, as if I were simply a character in a drama rather than the person affected. However, the lawyer said, a subtle pause amplifying the tension, it is my regret to inform you that. I leaned forward, curiosity piqued, my heart pounding like a drum. My siblings sat back, arms crossed, that smug smile plastered on their face, the gleam in their eyes unwavering, practically taunting me. One of you will receive an additional inheritance. I felt my breath hitch in my throat. To my eldest grandchild, I leave the entirety of my estate. A rush of realization washed over me, a wave of confusion crashing against the shore of my mind. I could not breathe. Everything seemed to fall into place, the final puzzle piece clicking into the rest, the tension, the secret meetings, the glances exchanged between family members that I had missed entirely. That's not fair, you can't do that. My voice broke through the quiet. I felt exposed, raw, like my very heart had been stripped bare. What do you mean I only get a trust fund? I mean nothing more was left for you, the lawyer answered, his tone unflinching as if this was just another day at the office. I turned my gaze to my sibling, who leaned forward, almost gloating in their contentment, as if the sun had burst into our gloomy day and cast their brilliance further into the spotlight. You just don't understand how hard I worked for this, they said, their voice dripping with condescension. Grandpa always knew I was destined for great things. I suppose it turns out that you were just a backup. Backup, I spat, my voice now unrecognizable, thick with emotion. Backup, I spent time with him. I was there for him when he needed someone to talk to while you were busy playing the charm card with everyone else. The room spun around me, the walls closing in, and I felt my heart break a little more with each word that filled the space between us. Who are you kidding? They shrugged, dismissing my pain with a wave of their hand. He saw me for who I really am. You were always just in the way, you still are. those words cut deeper than a knife, and I wanted to shrink back, to fold into myself and disappear. Yet instead, something primal began to stir within me, awakening an emotion I had buried beneath the weight of indifference: anger. No one had cared about my presence when my siblings' triumphs overshadowed my every effort, but this, the betrayal, felt too heavy to be left unnoticed. I could feel the foundation of my entire existence crumbling beneath me, the realization that my sibling would always have the upper hand in a game I hadn't even known I was playing. But perhaps it was time to change the game itself. Perhaps I could learn how to wield the darkness a bit better, to make it work for me instead of wallowing in the shadows. I looked around at the faces of our family, some sympathetic, others indifferent, but at that moment I made a decision. I would not let this injustice go unchallenged. I glanced back at my sibling, who wore triumph like a crown, and I felt the flicker of resolve ignite within me, a small spark of rebellion against the unfairness that had defined my life for too long. The game wasn't over. It was only just beginning. I had spent days building up the courage to plunge into the murky waters of this family secret, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. The air in my small apartment felt heavy, almost suffocating, as I stared at my phone, contemplating who I might call first. Family friends were supposed to bring comfort, warmth, and a sense of belonging, yet I felt like a stranger in my own life. After a lengthy deliberation, I decided to reach out to Aunt Margaret. She had always been the unofficial family historian, the one person who lingered long after gatherings to reminisce about days gone by. If anyone was going to know something, it would be her. I dialed her number, the sound of the ringing in my ear echoing louder with each tone. My mind whirled with conflicting thoughts. Would she be more inclined to defend our parents or speak candidly about what had been hidden from me? "Hello?" Aunt Margaret's voice broke through my spiraling thoughts. "Aunt Margaret, it's Ella," I said, trying to sound casual, but the tremor in my voice gave me away. "Ella, dear, how are you?" The warmth in her voice caught me off guard, the genuine hope such a welcome hug for my heart, even if only briefly. "All right, I guess. Actually, I was hoping to talk to you about something a little serious," I ventured, swallowing hard as I prepared to navigate this treacherous conversation. "It's about the trust fund and Mom and Dad." There was a heavy pause on the other end. I imagined her shifting in her chair, her fingers tapping nervously on the armrest. "Oh, I see. Yes, that's a sensitive topic," she finally said, her tone laced with concern. I felt the knot in my stomach tight. "Sensitive how? I thought we were all supposed to share the trust fund equally, but I heard something different." There was a slight trembling in my voice that I couldn't quite suppress. I could have sworn I heard her take a sharp breath, one that mirrored my own anxiety. "Well, darling, you know how things can be in families. Sometimes promises made are not the promises kept." "Messy," she murmured, her tone both soothing and ultimately evasive. I pursed my lips, my thoughts racing along a darkened path as I recalled the laughter at family dinners. Surely some of it was at my expense. "Do you mean to say that Mom and Dad deliberately lied to me about the trust fund?" I stammered out, disbelief mingling with bitterness. Aunt Margaret sighed, the sound almost a whisper. "Ella, you must understand." "What must I understand?" My voice rose, anger boiling beneath my skin. "That my parents care more about my sibling than they do about me, because that's exactly how it sounds." "Ella, please," Aunt Margaret implored, but I was not done. The shards of betrayal were turning into knives, and I was determined to wield them. "I spoke to some friends," I continued, feeling reckless but empowered. "They told me that the trust fund was supposed to be just for my sibling and that our parents have known about it all along." "Why would they do that?" "Why wouldn't they just tell me?" "Sometimes the truth is complicated," Aunt Margaret replied, but I could hear the hesitance in her words. It sounded so flimsy, as if she were trying to hold back the tide of reality. "I'll say it is," I snapped, biting the inside of my cheek in hopes of suppressing the tears that threatened to cloud my vision. "Complicated doesn't even begin to define what this is. How could they play favorites? How could they do this to me?" My voice cracked, filled with the weight of sorrow woven with outrage. Another pause lingered between us, thick and heavy, and I could almost see her mind racing, trying to find the right words, words to reassure or words to explain a betrayal that cut so deep. "Ella, you know families have their flaws. Maybe in their minds they thought they were doing the right thing. They likely believed your sibling needed more support." "Support? Just plain cruelty, Aunt Margaret. You should have seen how devastated I felt when I found out this wasn't all a shared blessing." "When I thought we were in it together," I said, my voice falling to a whisper by the end. "I thought we had something special, but I see now it was all a lie, a cruel joke." Aunt Margaret's silence was deafening, suggesting that she was wrestling with the weight of my words. "I never wanted you to find out this way, dear," she finally said, the sadness tangible in her voice. "But families can be confusing places. There is so much unsaid that leads to misunderstandings." Unspeakable betrayal disguising itself as confusion, I rephrased bitterly. "Why do I feel so alone? Where was this love I thought I had? Where were they when I needed them? When we lost Grandma, was I not deserving enough to be given the same consideration?" "I believe your parents thought they were looking out for you, creating a safety net for your sibling," she offered weakly, but I could hear her falter. "Safety net? No, Aunt Margaret, this was deliberate exclusion. Just admit it, they conspired against me. I'm not supposed to feel loved." A sob escaped, my breath hitching as I struggled to keep my composure. "Oh, my dear, please don't cry," she said, her voice lined with sincerity. "You are loved. I love you. This is just a tough situation. I want to believe your parents meant well by it. But they didn't mean well enough to tell me, did they? I was simply left in the dark to figure this betrayal out by myself." The tears now flowed freely, and I could do nothing to stop them. My heart shattered with every realization. Ella, you need to give this time. Maybe this could lead to a conversation that can heal things, she suggested, but it felt hollow. There's nothing left to heal. They stripped away the trust wall by wall, and I don't think I can bear to be around them now. How could I? Anything they say from now on feels meaningless. How can I ever have a relationship with them again over something so deeply personal? Aunt Margaret sighed, her sympathy pouring through the receiver, but I felt unmoored, the boat of my spirit tossed violently upon the ocean of family deception. You're right, Ella, I can't pretend this is easy. It will take time before you can face them again. Time will heal, or time will make it easier for them to shove this under the rug until I trip over it again. I spat back, my breath catching from my frustration. Ella, please, I know this is raw right now. I promise you they do care, even if their actions do not reflect that. But the truth is I now see it so clear, I cannot face them again until I've found a way to reconcile this, or I might scream rather than speak, I admitted. The anger mounted like a storm within me, coupled with a sense of loneliness that gnawed at my insides. Talking might bring some clarity, she suggested half-heartedly. Or it could turn into a battlefield, I muttered. Trust me, I am not afraid of raising my voice if it means getting through to any of them. I will not let them act as though all is well when everything feels crumbled beneath me. Then I shifted gears, feeling a surge of animation course through my veins as if I could channel the pain into something more potent. You know what, Aunt Margaret? I think the only way for me to recover any sense of dignity is to fight back. I cannot let them celebrate my failures because they will continue to count on my silence. Fight back, Ella, I really don't know that's the best. But her voice trailed off a shadow of uncertainty. Maybe not, I mused, but how else can I take back my life? They made me feel like I did not matter. They tore apart our shared bonds. I need to turn this anger into something palpable. I could hear her sigh deeply into the phone. Promise me you will be careful, she whispered. Careful, I echoed, slightly mocking. That is the least of my concerns now. What I need is to take a stand to reclaim my dignity. I won't go unnoticed anymore. The conversation ended soon after, leaving me pulsating with purpose. I spent the rest of the night plotting my course of action, feeling like an artist determined to reclaim her brushes after being forcibly stripped of the canvas. From that moment on, the notion of revenge began to paint a vivid picture in my mind, a heart racing, full of fury, fire, and hope, all tangled together. I would bury the pain and let my strength and resilience rise like a phoenix from the ashes, transforming every ounce of betrayal into the wings of retribution. I would rebuild from the rubble of my family's deceit and show them all what it truly meant to invite chaos into their lives. This was the beginning. I would make my stand. I remember the day so vividly, as if it were etched in my mind with bright red ink. The sky outside was overcast, a gloomy blanket that seemed to press down on everything with a heavy hand. It was in my little one-bedroom apartment, a place where dreams had once flickered but now lay dim, that I decided to ignite the spark of defiance deep within me. I needed a plan, and it dawned on me that I could turn my misery into a weapon. The idea came to me like a sudden jolt of electricity. I would pretend to be the desperate entrepreneur seeking my siblings' advice and assistance for a business venture. The perfect ruse to lure them into revealing their true nature while I determinedly collected the pieces of my life they had stolen. The hour was late when I made my first phone call, my heart racing and palms sweaty as I dialed their number. When the familiar, confident voice came through, I took a deep breath, ready to lower my own tone to a shaky whisper. Hey, it's me. I really need to talk. I could almost feel their curiosity mixed with that ever-present greed creeping through the line. What's wrong? You sound different, they replied, concern laced with opportunism. I knew that voice all too well. It was the kind that feigned care but burned with ambition. Things aren't going well for me right now. I've been trying to launch this business, but I might need some help. I just don't know how to push through. My voice trembled just enough to awaken their interest. I could imagine them leaning forward, listening closely, eyes lighting with the gleam of potential profits. What kind of business? They asked, feigning innocent curiosity. It's a startup specializing in eco-friendly products. I just feel like all my plans are falling apart. I plunged into my fabricated tale, detailing how I had exhausted my savings, my meager finances drowning under the burdens of failure. I thought I could count on my connections, but no one seems to be responding. The silence hung between us for a moment before it shattered into the sound of their excited chatter. Well, that sounds amazing. You know, I've always believed in green initiatives, they exclaimed, their enthusiasm masking their true intent. I can help you raise some funds, just tell me how much you need. Their eagerness was palpable, the way their voice cracked with excitement sent shivers down my spine. Here was an opportunity to turn the tables, to let them crawl into the trap I had meticulously set. Honestly, I think I need about $5,000 to get things off the ground. I just need to finalize my prototypes and set up a website. With that, I can really make something of this business. I could almost feel their calculation, the swift movement of their mind assessing how much to give. A silent war raged within me. I knew that every word I spoke poured gasoline over a fire that had just begun. 5 grand, that's nothing. I can absolutely help. Their voice was a toxic concoction of eagerness and greed, and I could envision them already tasting the fruits of my labor, ready to pilfer my dream before I had a chance to establish it. I will transfer the money to you today. You just have to believe in yourself, they said, as if pulling the wool over my eyes. The facade was amusing yet haunting because I knew the creature behind it, yet I had to act grateful to play my role to perfection. Thank you, really, thank you so much. I appreciate this more than I can say. I forced the gratitude into each word, my heart racing with the truth of my intent. I could hear their pleased chuckle, and it twisted like a knife in my gut. Within the following days, the charade escalated. I kept feeding them scraps of information about my business. Each interaction felt like a delicate dance, where I led them deeper into a web of lies while they enthusiastically promised to support me financially. I crafted emails, faux invoices, and business plans that spoke of grandeur while all the while building a case against them. Every time they promised more money, I saved the documents like trophies, each one clearer in capturing their greed-laden manipulation. My heart swelled with determination as I held my device close, recording snippets of calls where they promised to respond to investors, where they concocted false plans in their hunger for my potential success. I could hear the way their voice dripped with anticipation when they spoke of investment opportunities, how they hinted at taking charge of my finances as I sat silent, gritting my teeth in restraint. With each recording, I built a protective wall around my spirit, layer by layer, so their deceit was no longer able to ensnare me as it had in the past. There came a moment of clarity when I noticed how they began to siphon money from under my pretenses. They insisted that every increase in funds required their immediate intervention, always requesting more, just to keep the business afloat. I would nod, my insides churning, as they transferred portions of my ever-dwindling investment into their own pockets. Each act of betrayal transformed the pain I had felt into a burning desire for retribution, igniting a fire that had long been extinguished by disappointment. Ella, they pleaded one evening over a call, I really think we should set up a meeting to discuss the next phase. You need more backing, more capital. It's a risk, but I believe it could pay off. The priming of their words was hypnotic, and I resisted the urge to laugh or scream. Instead, feigning ignorance, I replied, absolutely, what do you need from me? I just want this to work so badly. Soon enough, as the requests turned into demands, I gathered my materials in preparation for the final act. My heart thundered in anticipation as I scribbled notes and collected documents that painted the perfect picture of their deception. I bought a small camera, having realized it was time to extract the truth from the snare they had woven so artfully. I crept through my rounds, secretly setting it up in my humble living room, which felt more like a caveman's lair since I had not bothered to clear away the debris of my chaotic life. The moment came when they agreed to meet. My pulse quickened, a mix of excitement and fear flowing through me like electric currents. I imagined their face as they walked into my home, the way they would be greeted by documentation of lies sprawled across the table. The thrill of it sent shivers down my spine. As I waited, I anticipated their reaction, picturing the shock, the fury, and ultimately their defeat as I laid bare all their mischievous deeds before them. When they finally arrived, I took a moment to breathe in before opening the door. Standing in the modest entryway, I hid my nerves beneath a mask of calm determination, feigning happiness. Welcome, so good to see you. I beamed, my voice bright but laced with a heaviness I knew only I could feel. They stepped inside with an air of confidence, the kind that always hinted they had control over everything. So what have you been cooking up? They asked, examining the modest space with a hungry eye. I've got some great ideas for us. Oh, I have ideas all right, I interrupted, guiding them toward the kitchen where I had spread out the saliva-drenched carcass of their greed. Sit, I've got some things we need to discuss. I watched their confidence shift just slightly as they settled down at the small, two-person table. The momentary flicker of uncertainty sent chills through my body, and it empowered me as I leaned forward, shoving papers across the table for their perusal. I have all your messages documented here, I said, watching as they scanned the letters filled with their fuel. Every promise you made to invest in my business, every lie, my heart thundered, each heartbeat amplifying the sound of their breathing. What is this, some kind of a joke? They snapped, their facade cracking as desperation clawed at the edges of their voice. It's not a joke, I assured, my own voice now steady. This is your reckoning time for you to face the consequences. Ella, wait, you don't understand. I was trying to help you, they stammered, realizing they had miscalculated the situation. A breath of satisfaction washed over me as my anger transformed into righteous fury. Help, is that what you call it? Stealing from me under the guise of support? I pushed forward, my resolve solidifying. This is where the charade ends. I have everything I need to expose you. You wanted to play this game, well, welcome to mine. And with that, the wave of defiance surged within my heart. I had constructed a plan that allowed me not only to confront but reclaim the life they had attempted to steal. I was no longer the victim, but a fierce competitor ready to claim back what was rightfully mine. The dark fog of despair had lifted, and I felt the exhilarating rush of hope and vengeance pulsating through my veins like a spark of new life. I stood at the center of the dimly lit dining room, its heavy mahogany table set with the remnants of our once peaceful life together, silverware glinting under the harsh chandelier lights, family portraits hanging on the walls, each one a frozen moment of laughter or joy. But tonight the atmosphere felt electric, charged with the tension I had carefully orchestrated. My heart raced, a wild drum beating beneath the surface of my calm exterior, as I watched my family gather, blissfully unaware of the storm that was about to unfold. Each person settled into their chair, their casual conversations a mere backdrop to the whirlwind of emotions brewing inside me. My sibling, sitting confidently at the head of the table, wore that same smug smile I had seen too often over the years, a smile that twisted my gut every time they joked at my expense or flaunted their undeserved triumphs. I had spent months gathering evidence, piecing together their betrayal with the meticulous attention of a detective crafting a criminal case. Documents and screenshots lined the dining table in front of me, an intricate tapestry woven from their deceit. The time had arrived to lay it all bare, to turn the tables and reclaim the power they had stolen from me for too long. As the familiar sense of roasted chicken and steamed vegetables wafted through the air, I cleared my throat, the sound cutting through the low hum of chatter. Silence fell as all eyes turned to me, full of curiosity and a hint of concern. It felt surreal, standing there as if time had slowed down, the weight of the moment pressing heavy on my shoulders. I took a deep breath, squeezing the edges of the documents in my hands, trying to harness the wave of adrenaline rushing through me. Dinner is great, right? I started, attempting a casual tone while my inside churned, but I think there is something more important we need to discuss. I could see my siblings' expression shift slightly, a flicker of confusion passing over their face. I pushed forward, determined not to lose my nerve. Did you really think you could keep this from me? The defiance in my voice made it sound much braver than I felt. Gasps filled the room, quickly quieting into hushed whispers as I slid the first document toward the center of the table. The crisp paper rustled, the sound sharper than I intended, and my sibling leaned forward, their confident demeanor melting away as curiosity and concern took its place. "What is this?" they asked, feigning nonchalance that I knew was all an act. "You know exactly what it is." I met their gaze with a fierceness that surprised even me. My heart clenched as I faced the truth of what had been happening behind the scenes. "It's evidence of your financial treachery, each lie you spun to keep me in the dark while you lined your own pockets." I could see the color drain from their face as I laid out the pivotal documents one by one, the bank statements I had secretly requested, the emails laden with deceit, the screenshots of conversations that showed their cold calculations. "What are you talking about?" they demanded, voice cracking as their bravado slipped further away. "You think I didn't notice, huh?" I pressed, the warmth of my righteous fury fueling me. "I mean, I'm not blind. While I've been struggling just to pay my bills, you've been sucking every ounce of financial support you can from the family. It's all right here." I gestured toward the pile of evidence, each page a testament to the betrayal that had plagued me for nearly a year. I could feel my parents' eyes grow wide as they shifted in their seats, the air thickening with unspoken words. My mother, usually the one to dismiss conflict, spoke first, her voice tinged with disbelief. "What are you saying? How could you do something like this?" Her eyes darted between my sibling and me, searching for answers. Attempts at maintaining appearances or covering for their greed, I shot back, my voice rising. "This isn't just a misunderstanding, it's calculated, just look at the numbers." I rifled through the pages, flipping to a highlighted section that detailed the funds funneled through a hidden account. "This is the money meant for our family, for emergencies, for the things that really matter in life, and instead you've been siphoning it off to fund your lavish lifestyle." "Enough," my sibling snapped, their voice tinged with desperation, but I was relentless. "I had to work for everything I've earned while you sat back and profited off our family's trust," I replied, unleashing the frustration that had been pent up for far too long. I could see my father's hands tighten around his fork, knuckles white as he processed the bombshell I had dropped. I took a breath, giving him a moment to absorb it all. "Did you really think this would never come to light, that I would remain the oblivious, naive sibling forever? What are you trying to achieve here?" My sibling shot back, attempting to regain control of the mood, but I could see the cracks shooting through their confidence. The audience had turned, the family dynamic I had known my entire life shifting under the gravity of my words. "I'm trying to expose the truth," I asserted, dropping my voice as only my family could hear it. The gravity of my resolve hung like heavy clouds overhead. "You thought you could pull the wool over my eyes, but now it is time for you to face the consequences." My sibling rolled their eyes, trying to maintain the facade, but it was futile. The shock across my parents' faces told me everything. Whispers erupted again, friends turning into allies, allies becoming the arbiters of this moral judgment. Suddenly, my sibling was isolated, the center of attention for all the wrong reasons. "Mom, Dad, listen to me." My sibling's voice broke, sounding far more frightened than I had ever heard. "This is all a misunderstanding. Ella is just what?" I interjected, thrusting the evidence forward, the pages shaking in front of me. "Just a jealous sibling? You think I would dishonor our family reputation for mere jealousy?" The disbelief was like a tidal wave crashing over them, and I savored the wave of satisfaction that followed. "It's more than that, it's about respect, honesty, and trust. You dismantled the very pillars on which we stand." "Ella, you are out of line." My mother's voice broke through, but it was weaker now, laced with uncertainty. "Do you even know what you're implying?" "I know exactly what I'm implying, Mom," I responded fiercely. "I want you to look at the facts, not through the rose-colored glasses of denial." Taking a moment to let my words sink in, I thought of the late nights spent gathering this proof, studying each detail until it felt like I was living in a maze of deception. "Look at the impact, the stolen trust, the broken bonds. We were supposed to be a family." In those moments, I could see the fissures forming on my siblings' facade, lines of tension etched deeply in their forehead, those once smug features distorting into something ugly as the realization hit them it was over. Their reign of financial deception had been unmasked. "You think you can just ruin everything?" they spat, voice dripping with venom. "You're the one causing all this chaos. This is why I didn't tell you, because you're incapable of understanding. You'll ruin our family." The room spun, the very walls seemed to vibrate under the weight of our confrontation. It was surreal to hear my siblings' twisted logic surface, boiling over with self-preservation and the refusal to take responsibility. I'm doing this for our family, I shouted out, heart racing, to make sure we can start anew, to force us back onto the right path. The vibrations in my voice betrayed the whirlwind of thoughts echoing through my mind, the depths of hurt and betrayal as raw as ever. I can't believe you would do this to me. Their voice quieted, almost hoarse, as they looked towards my parents for support, but there was none to be found. I could see the tide of loyalty shifting, like the unsteady ground beneath them was giving way. My parents, usually my siblings' staunch defenders, looked at each other, silent conversations woven into their glances, disappointment, anger, confusion. I thought you were better than this, better than your greed. My father finally spoke, looking sternly toward my sibling, their focus burning through the heavy air as the truth sank in. You took advantage of us all. How could you do that? I soaked in the moment, a moment of power, of payback. It was intoxicating to watch my sibling unravel under the weight of their own lies. You chose this path, not me. You can't blame me for wanting the truth out. I slammed the table for emphasis, my palms stinging from the impact. Ella, this is too much, my mother pleaded, but even her voice bled uncertainty. Too much? I exclaimed, a fierce intensity dominating my tone. What's too much is allowing this to continue, pretending it's all okay while someone is bleeding us dry. Someone we trusted? The table went quiet, the heavy silence settling around us as the reality of the situation closed in. My sibling clenched their jaw, their expression hardening into something I recognized all too well, a facade of anger mixed with fear. You will regret this, they warned, eyes cold, but beneath it I saw a flicker of something deeper, a crack, a fright, the fear of losing everything. I savored that fear, knowing it was the last resort of a person who feared being unmasked. I will never regret exposing the truth, I declared firmly, locking eyes with my sibling, refusing to back down. My breath came in steady waves, the adrenaline fueling my resolve. With the battle lines drawn, the family room closed in, filled with silence that felt like an impending storm gathering strength just beyond the walls. I had laid my heart bare under the scrutiny of loved ones, and they were beginning to see the magnitude of what had been covered in shadows for too long. Now the true reckoning began, honesty against lies, love against greed. And as I stood among family, I knew I would fight for the light even as the darkness threatened to consume us all. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting a warm golden glow over Cedar Grove as I stood in front of the old family house. It felt surreal to be back here, the echoes of the past whispering through the rustling leaves, yet now they seemed infused with a voice that had finally found its strength. I clutched the deed in my hands, not because it was mine, but because it represented an ending and a beginning, an unexpected culmination of everything I had fought for. $50,000 might have merely been a number to many, but to me it was a beacon of recognition, a long overdue testament to my worth within this family. I inhaled deeply, the scent of earth mingled with blooming wildflowers. It reminded me of childhood, the bright days spent running through the fields, carefree. Yet there was no time for nostalgia now. I had to navigate the reality of my victory and its ramifications. I turned to the house, the red brick walls painted by time, and shook my head. How naive I had been to think that inheriting love would come easy. Ella, is that you? I heard my mother's voice from the porch. Her figure framed in the doorway was a mixture of warmth and tension, her eyes clouded with the confusion of what had just unfolded. I didn't expect to see you here. Thought I would check in, I replied, my voice calm but firm. I packed away the emotions threatening to bubble up. Betrayal was an old friend at this point. How have you both been? We have been processing, she murmured, glancing inside as if searching for my father among the shadows of the living room. Your father is taking it hard, stripping your sibling of their inheritance. It hasn't been easy for any of us. Not easy. Maybe if you had listened to me sooner, it wouldn't have come to this. My heart raced as I felt the familiar fire ignite within me. You believed their lies over my truth. You thought I would always be the little sister who would silently endure. For heaven's sake, Ella, my mother exclaimed, her hands throwing up defensively. It is more complicated than that. Families make mistakes. Families? I echoed, incredulous. That's a nice word for betrayal, isn't it? How do you think I felt when the truth surfaced, buried under the weight of that so-called loyalty? The new confidence I had harnessed crackled in the air between us. They manipulated you into believing I was in the wrong while all I did was share my side. My mother hesitated, the weight of her own realizations apparent in her eyes. I never meant to undermine you, I just wanted to protect everyone. By supporting deceit, I stepped closer to her, determined not to be intimidated. And who was there to protect me? I had no voice in a family that was supposed to care. That ends now, she opened her mouth, perhaps to argue, but instead she sighed, the tension between us thinning. You have changed, Ella, I can see that, and perhaps it is my own fault I didn't recognize your strength sooner. Strength? I scoffed, crossing my arms. I didn't just find it, I fought tooth and nail for it, through the hurt and the secrets. It was a long and dark road that leads to the light of this moment. My father emerged from the shadows of the living room, his brows knitted and his demeanor tense. What's all this shouting about? He wiped his hands on a dish towel, catching my eye with a guarded glare. Ella, this isn't how we handle family conversations. Then perhaps you should have thought about that before you let my sibling lie to everyone you loved. I was charging forward, fueled by this newfound empowerment. I will not let this family continue to fall into manipulation and deceit like we are still children. I am done being silenced. Silenced? He questioned, an incredulous look crossing his face. Never, nobody silenced you, Ella, so you think? Do you remember all the times I was dismissed? Every opinion and dream I had laughed off like it was a childish joke? I took a deep breath, the anger morphing into a new clarity. I want something different now. I deserve more than the shadows you've shrouded me in. Now wait just a minute, Dad interrupted, his voice rising slightly. We are family, we work together, you need to realize that it's not about blaming each other. Work together? I exclaimed, incredulous. You want to work together when all of this could have been avoided if you had just trusted me? If you had believed your daughter instead of the one who has always pitted us against each other? I could feel the tension snarling under the surface like an unseen beast ready to pounce. Ella, he started, attempting to calm the air between us. You have every right to feel this way, but we can't go back and change what happened. Let us think of what's next. What then? There it was, the pitch of my parents' desperation to steer this conversation towards reconciliation. But the fire within me could not be doused so easily. What's next for me is not dictated by the mistakes of the past. I gestured towards the open landscape, every sound of nature around us becoming a witness to my resolve. I'm going to build something of my own, a life without the fear of judgment or betrayal. My mother blinked, the sadness creeping back into her features. But this is your family too, are you really willing to walk away? Walk away? I repeated, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. You don't understand what it feels like to stand alone in a corner while the family you love chooses to listen to lies. No, I'm not walking away, I'm walking towards something greater. I finally have my worth and it won't be so easily taken from me again. I don't like the way this sounds, Ella, my father said, his words trailing off under the weight of my fierce conviction. This feels more like an ultimatum. Not an ultimatum, Dad, a declaration. My heart raced, I was gaining momentum. I do not intend to repeat cycles of jealousy, betrayal, or silence. That means redefining what family means to me, then so be it. You should consider giving your sibling a second chance, my mother urged softly, to mend what is broken. After all, that's what family is about. I gritted my teeth, resisting the urge to look emaciated by their expectations. And what if that sibling hasn't changed? What if they still see me as a threat instead of an equal? I've fought too hard for my place in this family to go back to being someone's punching bag. I won't do it. I refused to live that way again. The silence that settled over us weighed heavier than I had imagined. I could see my parents exchanging glances, grappling with the reality they had built upon so many years of mistaken loyalties. I felt lighter standing in my truth, but I could sense their sorrow and confusion still rooted in the love that never ceased to be complicated and yet fragile. A new beginning, I finally spoke, the words filling the air as surely as the aroma of the blooming flowers nearby. This does not mean leaving you behind, it means challenging ourselves to consider what we can become together instead of what we fear losing. Ella, my mother hesitated, her voice shaking. This is going to take time. Maybe time is what we need, but trust must be rebuilt and actions must reflect that. No more secrets. My voice steadied, resolute. I deserve more than mere tolerance and half-hearted affection. If you want to be a part of this new journey, show me you understand my strength. I am not asking for permissions. This is mine to navigate, and I will no longer cower in the face of betrayal. I stepped back, the distance slowly building between us and their outdated expectations. I am going to spread my wings. I have dreams and plans, and they deserve to flourish without doubt. For the first time since this entire ordeal had erupted, I cracked a small smile. Excitement bubbled within me. You are welcome to support me or not, but this time I choose myself. And in that lies all the strength I need. As I turned and started walking away, I felt the world opening up before me, untamed and beautiful. The horizon stretched infinitely ahead, and with it came my freedom, my voice echoing through the fields, a melody of liberation. I turned back, catching the faint flicker of recognition in the eyes of my parents. Perhaps they finally saw me for whom I truly was, a warrior fighting for her place in this world. The path I chose might lead to complicated relationships ahead, but I would forge ahead with clarity, ready to claim every inch of my life. And as I walked towards my future, the weight lifted, light danced on the horizon, and I finally felt free.